The philosopher is how the educated world speaks of Aristotle in the Middle Ages, including Christians, Jews, and Muslims. He was seen as the quintessential philosopher of his time, a scholar with universal knowledge and a master of all fields of study. His writings, which began to reach Central Europe in the 9th century AD through interactions with the Spanish Moors, were eagerly collected, translated, examined, and debated in various corners of the world. In this video, we will delve into the life of Aristotle and take a close look at his most significant contributions to philosophy. Aristotle's categorization of sciences. Aristotle's classification of the sciences laid the foundation for all scholarly discussions, both in universities and monasteries. This is because Aristotle was the first to carefully and systematically categorize the diverse realms of knowledge. He introduced metaphysics, which deals with the concept of existence as a whole, examining what exists in the world and how it can be organized, from which he clearly separates physics, which encompasses all of natural science. Furthermore, he made a distinction between ethics and politics. Aristotle was a true polymath, bringing together a vast array of scientific disciplines and ideas. He wore multiple hats as a naturist, keen observer, political theorist, psychologist, astronomer, and philosopher. His work was groundbreaking and remains influential today. Compared to Plato, Aristotle made clear distinctions among these diverse fields of study. Notably, he actively contributed to many of them, developing a multitude of theories. But what made him truly brilliant was his ability to bring these different ideas together into a coherent and connected framework, a bit like constructing a comprehensive worldview. This remarkable accomplishment left an enduring and profoundly impressive legacy for generations to come. Aristotle at the Platonic Academy. It's highly unlikely that Aristotle's parents, at his birth in 384 BC, could have foreseen that he would one day become one of the most significant thinkers in Western history. His father, Nicomachus, held the position of court physician in the Macedonian king's court. When Aristotle was born in Stagira, located in northern Greece, he briefly lived within the royal court. However, we have limited information about his early years. Rather than following his father's path and serving the Macedonian king, young Aristotle made a pivotal decision at the age of 17. He journeyed to Athens to enroll in Plato's renowned academy. With immense enthusiasm, he immersed himself in the intellectually vibrant atmosphere among the scholars there. Aristotle approached his studies with unwavering diligence, embracing subjects ranging from rhetoric, mathematics, physics, astronomy, geography, to philosophy. The Platonic Academy and higher education in general was, so to speak, en vogue in Greece during that time. It wasn't just about reading poetry, you were expected to be a poet yourself. Likewise, you didn't merely study mathematics, you were a mathematician and an astronomer. So, for young individuals like 17-year-old Aristotle who came to these schools, it was primarily a learning experience. Aristotle spent a remarkable 20 years at Plato's academy. After completing his studies, he took on the role of teacher, conducting lectures and writing his own works. Many of his writings were shaped by his lively debates with Plato, particularly regarding Plato's theory of forms. However, Aristotle also had his reservations, especially when it came to Plato's vision of an ideal society ruled by philosopher kings, a concept Aristotle couldn't fully embrace. If you want to know more about Plato and the concepts he taught at his academy, check out our video on 3 of his most influential concepts. Link in the video description. During his time at the academy, Aristotle wasn't just a student, he was a profound thinker in his own right. He carefully examined which methods suited various fields of study, and he developed his unique metaphysical and physical theories. When Plato passed away, Aristotle decided to leave not only the academy, but also Athens itself. This decision was influenced by significant political changes in the city. The Macedonians had risen as the dominant military force in the region, forcing almost all Greek city-states into an alliance. Given his Macedonian heritage, Aristotle no longer felt secure residing in Athens. Aristotle, along with his friend Theophrastus, eventually finds a new home on the island of Lesbos. Here, he transitions from deep theoretical pondering about scientific methods and concepts, which occupied much of his time in Athens, to a new phase, focused on hands-on, empirical exploration of natural processes. Aristotle as a scientist. Aristotle was likely one of the earliest, if not the first, to get his hands dirty in the service of science. He collected shells, algae, caught sea stars, and creatures. He also asked local fishermen for specimens and descriptions of rare marine life, which he then dissected, named, classified, and categorized. In his work on the parts of animals, Aristotle passionately advocated for appreciating the beauty inherent in nature, even in its smallest details. He thought that nature had a deliberate plan to protect and support life, a sentiment that shone through in his writing. Aristotle conducted his pioneering work on Lesbos like a field biologist, closely observing, systemizing his findings, and experimenting within the natural world. The approach marked a groundbreaking departure. Despite lacking advanced tools like microscopes, Aristotle's work marked the birth of empirical research, leading Charles Darwin in the 19th century to recognize him as one of history's greatest observers. Aristotle and Alexander the Great. In the midst of his groundbreaking work in systematically understanding the living world and laying the foundations for the field of biology, Aristotle was summoned to the Macedonian royal court. There, he assumed the role of tutor, responsible for educating the young heir to the throne, who would later become known as Alexander the Great. Remarkably, Alexander was only 13 years old at the time. Aristotle likely served as his tutor for approximately 3 years until he became involved in the governance alongside Alexander's father, Philip, at which point his teaching duties likely ceased. After this period, in 335 BC, he returned to Athens, following the death of King Philip and Alexander's ascension to the throne. It is also believed that Alexander provided the financial support for Aristotle to establish his own school. Peripatetic school of philosophy. Aristotle followed the example of Plato and established his own school in Athens as a scholar, scientist, and philosopher. Over the next 13 years, he succeeded in making this educational institution well known, far beyond the borders of Athens, transforming it into a gathering place for intellectuals of that era. Here, Aristotle continued to refine his works on natural sciences and supplemented existing manuscripts. In this manner, he authored over 200 works, but today we are only familiar with a quarter of them. During his second stay in Athens, his primary focus shifted to practical philosophy. Questions of ethics and politics became central to his thinking. Virtue ethics. When it comes to ethics, Aristotle borrowed a fundamental idea from Plato, the notion that virtually every human being naturally seeks their highest form of happiness. No one needs to be convinced to do this, it's an inherent drive. However, the challenge lies in the fact that very few people have a clear understanding of what happiness truly entails. And even if they have a sense of it, they often struggle to grasp how to attain it. Aristotle believes that the pursuit of happiness is at the core of human actions. Therefore, he places this pursuit, which he considers an inherent quality of all individuals, at the heart of his ethical considerations. Every art and every inquiry, and similarly every action and pursuit, is thought to aim at some good. And for this reason, the good has rightly been declared to be that at which all things aim. He writes this in the first book of his Nicomachean Ethics. Because people seek happiness for its intrinsic value, Aristotle regards it as the highest good. In the end, Aristotle's theory can be seen as a form of what we might call thoughtful self-interest. In other words, for the sake of long-term self-interest, one should lead an honest life. In Aristotle's view, happiness is not about fleeting pleasures, but rather about leading a good life over extended periods. This involves various elements, including ethical and character development, intellectual growth, and political education. Aristotle's death. In 323 BC, the unexpected death of Alexander the Great in Babylon set off a chain of events. Greek city-states seized the opportunity to rebel against Macedonian rule, with Athens witnessing an uprising against the occupying forces. Despite his renown as the head of his school, a distinguished scientist, and a philosopher known well beyond Athens, Aristotle found himself caught up once more in political turmoil. He ended up in court because of his connections with the Macedonians, although they didn't specifically say that. They accused him of impiety. Legend has it that Aristotle remarked he didn't want to give the Athenians another chance to harm philosophy. He subsequently withdrew to his nearby estate on the island of Euboea. Just a year later, in October 322 BC, Aristotle passed away on Euboea at the age of 62. In the centuries following his death, his writings initially gained attention and received commentary. Prominent figures like Cicero were familiar with his work. However, interest in his writings gradually faded. With the fall of the Western Roman Empire, the Greek language was no longer understood in this region, and it took many centuries before the first Latin translations of select Aristotelian works were rediscovered through Spain. Aristotle essentially became the intellectual forebearer of all sciences, providing them with names and delving into appropriate methods for each. Subsequent scholars invariably turned to his work for guidance, even when they didn't always agree with its content. Aristotle's contributions were so profound that there was no turning back from them. Be sure to subscribe to our channel and activate notifications so you can stay informed. We will be releasing many more videos on thinkers like Hegel, Rousseau, and Spinoza in the near future.